Throughout the novel Wuthering Heights, revenge plays such a significant role in Heathcliff's actions and dispositions in the novel. Growing up as a child, Heathcliff was always abused and mistreated by Hindley. He was constantly beat up by his older brother out of jealousy for their father's favoritism. The two children were not given the guidance needed for them to be able to form healthy relationships. They were never taught the basic fundamentals of social life, such as how to have a civil conversation, express emotions without the use of violence, and forgive and move on. The isolation of Wuthering Heights allows Heathcliff to develop into such a socially immature person. With only images setting an example for the new generation all the same, violent and unable to express feelings, there is no room for the new generation to learn any new, better behaviors. So, as a result of this, Heathcliff focuses on exacting revenge on Hindley rather than trying to make amends and move on.
Heathcliff feels he deserves retribution for the loss and abuse that he has experienced in his life. When Hindley returned from college with his wife Frances, he treats Heathcliff like a common field laborer, denying him the right to education and condemning him to a life of ignorance. Hindley then continues to forbade the communication between Heathcliff and Catherine, out of embarrassment as now Mr. Linton has possession over and is reforming Catherine into a poised lady. While away, Catherine becomes interested in the Lintons' son, Edgar, and has higher standards than her men. When she returns, she finds Heathcliff to be dirty and not high class enough for someone of her stature. For example, the only way that Mr. Linton would permit his family to venture from Thrushcross Grange to visit Wuthering Heights was if Heathcliff was not present during dinner. This betrayal by Catherine was the first of many to come, wearing away at what can be perceived as Heathcliff's humanity. The more damage done to Heathcliff, the less forgiving he becomes, and the more he feels he deserves great compensation for his hardships. Many injustices were done to Heathcliff, many of which were Catherine's betrayals.
Moving on to the next course of actions takes solely based around revenge. There is Hindley and his son. To effectively take revenge on Hindley, he must take his anger out on Harridan, Hindley's son, due to his inconvenient, untimely demise. As Hindley took away Heathcliff's ability to get an education, Heathcliff takes away Harridan's, condemning Harridan to the same uneducated life that he lives. By doing exactly what Harridan did to him, Heathcliff feels as though he has taken everything from Hindley's son that Hindley took from him, even though Hindley is not there in person to see it. There would be no motivation for these actions had revenge not been a key role in all of Heathcliff's plans and ideas.
Another betrayal that occurred in Heathcliff's life was Catherine choosing to marry Edgar over him. This ensured him to lead a revenge-filled life. After having the one person he loves throw that raw confession of love back in his face was devastating enough to cause him to turn so evil and cruel. He takes out his anger on his children, wife, Catherine No. 2, Edgar, and anyone else who ever vexed or wronged him. In order for Heathcliff to exact appropriate revenge, he must take everything from his targets that he feels they took from him. Edgar took the love of his life, and therefore Heathcliff wants to take over Thrushcross Grange and all the wealth it comes with, which would have been his in the first place if Catherine had chosen him. Without Catherine in his life, Heathcliff's only drive is his need for revenge. In the book, there's a quote that states, "They forgot everything the minute they were together again, at least the minute they had contrived some naughty plan of revenge." Catherine helped make the misery more bearable for Heathcliff. She is not only his friend, sister, but also his co-conspirator in a childhood scheming. Clearly, Heathcliff was unwilling to sit back and accept poor treatment, even as a child. Without Catherine in Heathcliff's life, he has no sense of humanity. She is, in a way, his conscience that grounds him when he needs it the most. This is shown as Heathcliff's most vicious acts of revenge were only taken after Catherine's death.
Heathcliff's actions, mainly toward the end of the novel, are purely devoted to exacting his revenge. When Heathcliff gains custody over his child Linton, he uses him as a pawn in his quest. When he observes that Catherine No. 2 and his son have bonded and formed a connection, he finds an opportunity to take over Thrushcross Grange. When Catherine is forced to stop writing to Linton, he is heartbroken. Heathcliff takes this as a chance to turn Linton against Catherine and help him get back what Heathcliff thinks is rightfully his. Heathcliff then ensures that, in Edgar's failings, Catherine and Nellie are forced to remain in Wuthering Heights until Catherine agrees to marry Linton. Catherine only does so because she is desperate to see her father again before he passes, whom is being kept from her by Heathcliff. Someone cruel enough to take a daughter from her dying father purely for the sake of his revenge, has given their life to their cause and lost sight of the consequences surrounding their actions. In the book, there's a quote that says, "I'm trying to settle how I shall pay Hindley back. I don't care how long I wait, if I can only do it at last. I hope he will not die before I do." Revenge is one of the emotions that drives Heathcliff and gives him a reason to live. This soon-to-be revenge plan eventually comes into play when Heathcliff didn't get Linton to a doctor, letting him get weaker and weaker each day. Heathcliff would happily sacrifice his son to succeed in his conquest for revenge.
Heathcliff, angered by Catherine's betrayal and Hindley's ability to take away the only thing which he loved, creates an insatiable hunger for revenge. Heathcliff has concluded that the only way for him to feel as though he has been compensated for his emotional anguish is to take revenge in replicating what was done to him. The only difference here is that Heathcliff began with nothing, and the people he seeks revenge on have always had something. It is arguable that what Heathcliff is doing to the targets is worse than what was done to him. It is thought that it is impossible to miss or desire something that one has never experienced or possessed. Assuming this is true, Heathcliff is exacting a more painful revenge than is fit to his grievances.